Hey guys, Moose here with Cerakote. I'm super stoked on this video today. This is a question I get a lot at SHOT Show, other trade shows, or when I run into applicators just out and about. How do I know that I'm applying the right amount of coating when stenciling? We've all felt it, we've all seen it, the Braille Camo, where everybody just goes too thick around stencils and you get those really nasty ridges. And I've also seen it where you see a color on top of another and you can still see through it. Today we're gonna kind of dive into what are we looking for in the booth with the coating when applying over the top of stencils to know I'm getting good saturation and I'm reaching good color, but I'm also not going too thick. So in today's video, we're not necessarily gonna jump into the gun settings that we're using. There's a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different size parts, different patterns, where a bunch of different gun settings could be used for this. What are we looking for when spraying to know, am I going too heavy? Am I not putting enough? But also how to work through a part to make sure that we're doing it correctly and we get a nice seamless pattern without ridges. We're gonna link down below a couple videos from our dial down series, which will cover the gun settings that we do use for a lot of this type of stuff. So check those out if you haven't seen them. A big thing to know when it comes to stenciling is your base coat is where your durability and your performance come from. So your base coat is what gets applied at that 1 mil or 2 mil thickness, depending on the color that you're putting as your base. All the other colors we put on top when we're doing a pattern or a stencil project, it's all for color, not thickness. So let's jump into the booth and let's kind of dive into what we're looking at.
Please wear all appropriate PPE while working with Cerakote. Our training rooms have EPA-approved filtration, allowing us to teach students without respirators, so lessons can be heard.
So I got my gun settings to where I prefer, especially for shooting over stencils. There are a couple fine-tuning things like dialing in your fluid settings, maybe dialing in your air. When it comes to dialing in your fluid settings, one thing to take into consideration is what type of sprayer are you? If you're someone that moves quick, you might actually need to increase the amount of fluid compared to what I'm using here to get that semi-wet reflection. If you're someone that moves slower, you might need to decrease fluid and use less fluid when spraying. That way you don't overcoat and get those ridges. So one thing to look for is that semi-wet reflection. We are getting the coating to wet out, but those solvents flash almost instantly. We don't necessarily want to get that wet reflection and have that wet reflection hang out for a long time, maybe like you would when you're actually doing a base coat. We want that wet reflection to flash off pretty quickly. Okay, so we got a slide here. I laid my layer of stencils down. I'm just gonna top coat this with black. What I'm really gonna try and look for here is that semi-wet reflection when applying it. So I wanna be at the right distance, move at the right speed to where I'm not getting too wet of a reflection, or I'm moving too fast where I'm kind of getting dry spray or a little bit of a transparency type look where the coating isn't able to actually like fill in all the way. I'm gonna work all the way around this part, and then after I do that, I'm gonna come back to my starting face. By that time, all of those solvents should have flashed off of the part by then. And once that solvent flashes, you're kind of getting a realistic view of, do I have any transparency? Do I see any of that base color showing through? One main thing here is your side light. Your side light is your best friend in your spray booth. That is really gonna help you see, are you getting a wet reflection at all? If you don't have side light or you don't have sufficient enough light in your spraying environment as is, it's gonna be really hard to see that wet reflection, especially when shooting around stencils because those solvents should be flashing relatively quick. So I worked all the way around that part. I'm back at the face that I started on here. Notice all those solvents have evaporated. It's matted out. Kind of do a good inspection. I don't see any transparency. I don't see any of that base color showing through. So that's it. Just one layer to be able to get that color on there. I feel like this is where a lot of people make a big mistake is they do one light coat, they get that opacity of the color on top, but they feel like they need to put it thicker. This is just a superficial layer to add into that pattern. So now we have a larger part. I'm gonna throw a top coat on it. Things that I might adjust to my gun settings because I got a larger substrate, a larger surface area to cover, is I might increase my amount of fluid to increase the size of my fan pattern, but still remembering that I only want that semi-wet reflection on the part. I, once again, don't want orange peel. I don't want those solvents to stay wet for a long time. So by increasing my fluid, now maybe I need to increase my speed of which I move across the part. We're looking for the same thing, it's just on a larger scale. Once again, I'm gonna go around the whole part one time, and I'm gonna go back to where I start. Once those solvents flash, check for any transparency. This is a little bit of a lighter color, so there is a potential that I might have to do 2 coats, but I think if I move at the right speed and I'm getting that semi-wet reflection, I think I can get enough coverage within 1 coat, which is kind of what we're going for, so we really don't build those ridges. So now that I've finished spraying that top coat there, I'm gonna allow those solvents to flash. Once it's matted out really well, I don't see any wet reflection anymore. I'm just gonna give it a nice once over, and I'm really just looking for transparency. Right here, I actually do see a little bit of the blue showing through, so I'm just gonna hit a little bit there, make sure I cover that up, allow those solvents to flash as I'm kind of moving around the rest of the part, just kind of looking, see if I see any of that blue showing through the base. Looks pretty good to me. That's as easy as it is. We just need 1 layer, because remember, color not thickness. We don't want to just keep hammering this thing with more coats. That's how we're going to get those really bad ridges. Hopefully this helps you guys when you guys are spraying around stencils or over the top of stencils. You can always reference our 2-color fade video that I did not too long ago. We do a little bit deeper dive into the gun settings for the fade, which is very similar to how you would actually want to shoot around stencils. We also have that dialing down series where it's dialing down, shooting around stencils. We'll link that one down below. As always, thank you for watching. Contact technical support if you have any questions. Like, subscribe, follow us for more. Catch you on the next one.